Books. We're here tonight in the Brick Cave. So
So, Sharon, writing updates. What are you working on?
I'm still working on the same stuff I've been working on. I have made progress. I've made some progress on some of the writing, but it's been a bit slow. Uh, I will say that I did get to proof the Honoria. So the Return to Honoria book is coming out in the first week of November. So I got my proof
Oh,
copy.
great.
Yeah, I got my proof copy of that. So I was able to go through and do the proof on that. I'm doing the final proof right now on that. And then that'll be set to go. So, progress. There is progress. It's, a few hundred words here and there on the writing, but at least, I have a book coming out.
Better than me.
And what are you working on, Bruce?
Well, I've gotten fairly deep into silver magic finally. I'm up to probably about the third to a little more way through and have laid out most of the plot elements and all the characters. And now we're going to start getting into some of the political intrigue and dirty dealing.
Excellent, excellent. So, without spoiling anything here, how do I say this? There was something that happened at the end of Platinum that was totally ignored all through Gold, and I'm wondering whether
Yeah,
or not
well,
we're getting
that's
something
going
in
to start
Silver.
coming back.
Okay, all
So
right, yeah.
I will, without releasing too much of a spoiler, I will say that some of the news out of the Grey Havens is that Flanders has reappeared under the
Okay,
protection of one of the major houses,
okay, all right.
which bodes ill for
Yes,
our
yes, it
heroes.
does. All right. Okay, good. Because there was that thread, and as
It
not.
was intentionally put underground so I could do
Mhm.
a little more on the status and tribulations of the orcs because that's very important in the third book as well.
Okay. Well, and again, there's no reason why you can't do that. I mean, not saying that. I was just like,
No, but
are we going to
other
get
readers
that in
other
Silver?
readers have made the same comment. So what
Where is it?
happened? And it's
Where
like,
is it?
well, we
So,
got a little more groundwork to lay here
okay.
before the bigger confrontations will make a lot of sense. So
Looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. So, excited to see what you do with that. So last time we talked, you were saying that you had felt like you had to stop and step back because you were writing the same story again,
right.
and so you were able to now navigate that.
What I did, and I think I hope that the way I've managed to do it has broken out. Part of the problem that I was having was that Simon is now a lieutenant.
Okay. Oh,
He's not a sergeant
yeah.
anymore.
Mm,
He's actually running three teams at once, three sergeants, because that's the
mm-hmm.
command structure.
Right.
And Hal is one of the sergeants who is now reporting to him.
Ah, okay.
And Hal being his foster father, that
A little family
is a little.
tension.
Actually, there's not as much tension as you would think because Hal had already been his second in command
That's true.
in the team. But um, I've got a little bit in there that's pretty much Stonebender Hall domestic bliss that talks about the family and the relationships.
Okay. All right.
So that'll be kind of fun, I think, for the people who might want to know more about how that works.
Okay. I'm in. I'm in for that. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that you. So you say you haven't really made progress, but that's a lot of progress to re-envision the storyline on a work, especially a third book, is a lot.
And that's what's kind of got me a little more enthused about continuing the writing. I'd reached a point where it was like, you know, how you sometimes feel like you're just butting your head against the wall and the characters aren't talking to you and it's
No,
what
Bruce,
oh
I have
gee, never
no
been there.
idea.
Yes, I know, we've all been there. And a few, well, not a few weeks ago, probably 2 weeks ago, um, I was slogging away and then one of my secondary characters said something and I said, aha, now we know where we're going to go with this.
Right.
It's one of those
Lovely
lovely
moments.
moments.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good way to describe it. It's fun.
Well, 80% of the writing really is done subconsciously, I think, or at least in your thinking. You're thinking about it more than anything, and I think a big chunk of that is subconscious. I heard it once referred to, and I repeat this all the time, as the subconscious churn. So all that stuff is going on there. So when your character says something out of the blue like that, and you're like, oh yeah, that's
Now
it
that
right there.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's a joyful moment, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So speaking of which, we had talked last time, after our we got together last time. We were talking about, well, what do we want to talk about? What kind of topics should we cover in our next podcast, which would be this podcast? And one of the things that came up is conflict and tension. And I'm interested in, when you say the domestic bliss of Stonebender Hall, and you say it with that laughter. I'm interested on how that's playing into the need for conflict and tension in the story.
Part of that goes back to my ideas between, and I'm very concrete in my thinking, so take this for what it's worth. Conflict is open tension. So it may be a fist fight, it may be a yelling match, it may even be, in the setting of, say, a police procedural, an intense interrogation that makes some breakthrough. Whereas tension is all of those little things that kind of grate on people, but they smooth it over with politeness or smooth it over with diversion. And I find that much harder to write because you have to build that up with dialogue or with action. I don't like the internal dialogue thing where he thought blah, blah, blah. That
Right.
just, to me, is kind of distracting. I use it, but I usually use it in a very concrete way.
Hmm.
Why is he saying that? Just a very brief flash, not this long internal monologue about how I'm being very polite, but I'm very conflicted. Um, Sometimes that works. I'm actually listening to the latest installment in the Murderbot Diaries, and I love Murderbot's internal dialogue almost as much as I love his external snarkiness. But that's not how I write.
Hmm.
And you've commented sometimes that I need to put more internal exposure of my character's feelings
Yeah, it's got the
into it.
emotion on the page so that the reader gets it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I, I and I'm probably too subtle sometimes with that when I put it out in action. So here, there's a little bit of tension in the sense that Simon is the foster child. He has three foster brothers and three foster sisters, and he and his closest in age foster brother essentially are of similar age and grew up together. But his foster brother is the equivalent of a defense attorney, not well
ah,
liked by most police forces. So,
nice. Okay. All right.
so there's a little bit of that dialogue, and then of course Molly, is the matriarch, has to step in and say, "We're not going to discuss this at the table, gentlemen."
In her very Molly way.
Yes,
Right?
in a
So,
very Molly way.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
and all of that's to make clear the fact that it's both tense, but actually a very close family. Now,
Right.
these are people who really do like each other. They just disagree.
Right. Well, that's good. We like to like people and still be able to disagree with them and still be able to like them.
Yes. Gee,
Whether they're
have
family
we
or
ever
not.
encountered that, Sharon?
No, Bruce, you and I would not know what that was like at all.
Yes. So
Yes.
that's kind of my take on conflict and tension. I think tension is the more subtle thing. I think it's in many ways harder to do in your writing. We all feel tension, and we can tell. I think humans are very well attuned to recognize the body language and speech pattern of tension. That's a hard thing to write.
It is. It's difficult to get it on the page. It's very nuanced. And so it I get exactly what you're saying, which especially if you're not doing internal dialogue or internal monologue or thought or any of that, because that it's easier to just say, well, the character was thinking or feeling or whatever. It's a lot harder. But a lot of that's when I work with authors, a lot of that, what I push for them is to dig deeper and then use word choice. And, because it's always about how the character, sees the world, the lenses through which they're looking at the world. And my lenses change from moment to moment, day to day, depending on my mood. And so how I see the world is going to change as well. So there are ways to do that. I think you do a good job of it in your books. I do think I've had to kind of push you a
You
little.
have on occasion, and I don't disagree. I find myself having to stop and try to figure out, is this a good point to insert that little bit of, under his breath he says, you blah
Right.
blah blah blah, but
Well,
politely he says.
Well, you do a lot of getting into the plot and the mechanics, almost like in a Mickey Spillane kind of way. I'm just going to say that, where it was, this happened and then this happened and then he just he reacted to this and he reacted to that and then he punched the guy. I mean, it's there's a lot of that goes on that nowadays people want that deeper read. They really want, especially in a fantasy readers tend to want to get deeper into the world. They want to get deeper into character. And so you've just got to push it that little bit, is all it is. And I think you do a good job of it in your final works. I'm very pleased with your books, and buy Bruce's books. They're really good.
Well, see, but that's where I've kind of admired a lot of the stuff that you've done. We have a little mutual admiration society,
Thank you.
because you are very good at using those few words of internal monologue, not even having it as an internal monologue, but it's clear where that patient's feelings are going. And
Mm.
you don't spend a lot of time of it. Usually it's like a sentence or a phrase. And it's like, oh, I understand that totally. And it's not overwhelming. I really do kind of get turned off by books that spend too much time
In the head.
in the
Yeah.
head and analyzing. I've recently finished a couple of Michael Connelly's Bosch series where I think he got a lot distracted about Harry Bosch and his conflicted feelings. And there were kind of whole pages where like, yeah, I get it. I
Right.
get it.
Yeah.
Let's just move on.
Well,
Let's
we
find
don't.
out what
We.
happens next.
I don't like being hit over the head with it.
Yeah,
I
yeah, that's
and
exactly
that's
what I mean.
there's subtle, and then there's letting the reader in, and then there's getting clobbered over the head with it, and it's just I don't like that
And
either.
a couple of times it's like, oh, I know how he's going to, I know the character, so I know how he's going to react to this situation. You don't need to tell me again.
Right, right. Yeah, especially in series, right?
Yeah. Well, not even in say, even if you just picked up that book,
Really?
it's not the situation at times isn't that dissimilar to something that happened earlier in the book where he showed
Oh,
this reaction.
right,
It's like, I get it. You don't have to do this all over
right.
again.
Yeah, it's like explaining all the reasons why somebody's broken and then they make a bad decision. And that's why they made the bad decision because they're this broken, that broken, the other broke. Yeah. It
Yeah.
just, you don't have to belabor the point. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust your readers. Writers, trust your readers.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, yeah. So to me, conflict is it, it goes a little deeper. It's not as concrete as it is for you. And tension for me can be the simplest thing. It can be putting a question in the reader's mind about what might happen next, or what is the character thinking, or what's their next move going to be. So for me, tension really isn't just about what's going on in the for the characters, but also how you're raising tension for the reader and those expectations, and then sort of setting them up for the next thing. And that to me is has to be done very subtly. I don't like to be hit over the head with that either. And I don't, I like to be hooked, but I don't want to be, you know, yanked on once I'm hooked. I don't need somebody to put the hook in my mouth and then yank me to the side. I, I get it. I'm in, right? I just read let's see, talking about your recent reading. I just read a book, was fascinating. The author's name is, I can't think of her first name, but her last name is Valenti, and it's called Space Opera, and it's a basically it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy meets Eurovision. Exactly. I it was I wasn't sure I was going to like it, but she is a really smart writer, and there was character arc, and yet it was extremely entertaining. And she writes Faulknerian length sentences, but they all are grammatically correct and they make sense. But you have to work a little bit sometimes to stay with her, especially if you're just like I like to read at night as I'm going to sleep. Before I go to sleep, I like to read for about an hour every night. And there were times when I was like, what the heck did I just read? What did she
You
say?
get halfway through the sentence, like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I fell asleep
Yeah.
here somewhere. I need
But
to.
yeah, but apparently I've been missing out on this author. So I'm going to go, she's got other books out that I'm going to be looking for now. So,
I'll have to
um,
check that out. I just picked up. I can't remember the author's name either. It's the Ballad of Black Tom,
hmm,
and it's set in New York in the 1920s. And it's really about a black hustler, I guess would be the best word. He's sort of a con man. He's just out to make a buck any way he can. And one of his scams involves pretending to be a musician, even though he doesn't play or sing very well. But then he runs afoul of this Grigri queen, and now he's all involved in this kind of supernatural.
oh, see, now
I
I
haven't
might
seen
like that.
zombies yet, but when you start mentioning Grigri, it's like there's going to be a zombie in here somewhere.
Chances are, right?
And I'm only about halfway through it, but it's as a period piece, it is really good.
Ballad of Black Tom, huh?
Yeah.
Making a note.
Um, and just the whole atmosphere of Harlem in the 20s, because that's kind of the right in the middle of the Harlem Renaissance of that
Yeah, and that's
big resurgence of black business and black music
yeah.
and the nightclub scene and all of that. And he's not really in that. He's an outsider to even to that. So even to his own people,
Okay.
he's an outsider
All right.
because he can't really play and he doesn't really do an honest day's work, and yet he's trying to drift between both of these worlds. It's really really kind of fascinating. I'm enjoying it.
All right. I'm putting it on my list. You'll be proud of me. The book I'm reading right now is The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le
Oh,
Guin.
goody. Have you
I,
not read that?
I had not read it. It was one of those ones that went right by me. She was extremely prolific. And during my youth in the 70s, I read a ton of science fiction, but I didn't read it all, of course, because I also read a lot
one
of.
of my favorite.
Is it?
Ones.
Well,
Yes.
you'll be happy to know that I'm almost at the end of it right now. So I'm pretty fascinated by the whole thing, even though it's not my normal cup of tea, because it's so uh, political and so social and all of that
And I
in a way
I
that
does it age well?
yeah, oh yeah, it ages really well,
Because I
especially
would
for
be
right
concerned
now.
about. Yeah,
No,
maybe. All right.
because I know it ages extremely well, and I'm fascinated by I had not read any Ursula for a while, and I'm extremely fascinated by how deep into the science she writes.
Oh yeah.
I'd forgotten, or I just didn't it
Well,
didn't.
if you just stick with her fantasy, you don't
Yeah, and I
realize
mostly
that
read her
she is
fantasy.
a scientist,
Yeah, she's
and
so
and
deep into it,
so
and I'm like, oh my god, she knows these things. I have no clue.
even in her short stories, I can't remember the title of the story, but it's part of the same cycle as Left Hand of Darkness, and she uses the whole bit of time dilation and how that affects someone who goes away and then comes back, but they go away with special knowledge that then becomes critical at the time they come back.
Interesting.
And it was just a really fascinating
Yeah.
story.
So
And I'm trying to remember, it's right in the very beginning of the Hanqui cycle or whatever. What was it? I'm
Mm,
blocking on it.
I don't know. I'm a bit of a COVIDiot these days. The I've decided that the zombies have already eaten my brains, and what you get is the leftovers. So
Well, what I'm getting is physical mask fatigue.
yeah, yeah.
Those masks make my nose plug up,
Mm-hmm.
particularly the N95 and respirator masks. I put them on and I'm instantly plugged up for some reason.
Mm.
And I'm in them so much now that my nose never clears.
So you're
And I'm just,
having to breathe through your mouth and everything.
yeah, it's just
That's
awful.
yeah, that's horrible. Not yeah, that's no good. I wouldn't like that either. I did notice that some of the masks that I was wearing recently, I had a couple that I don't know if I was just breathing really deep or what, but the mask was like sucking into my face, and it's like,
If they're
ah!
too soft, they'll do that.
Yeah. So, but you
Believe
know
me,
what I did?
an N95 doesn't do that.
You know what I did though? I took one of those, those things that you're supposed to put on your nose to sleep so you don't
Oh,
snore.
yes, yes, yes.
I put one of those inside my mask, and it works great. It's keeping it off my face. So there you go. Uh, so we had another topic. I think we've talked a little bit about conflict and tension. Unless there's something more you want to say on that, but let's talk a little bit about likable and unlikable protagonists.
I have a hard time with this.
Talk to me.
I find it very difficult to read the truly unlikable protagonist. There are protagonists that I love that the rest of the world in the book find unlikable, but you're inside their head, so you understand them and they are likable. The truly unlikable protagonist, I just can't do. And two books that got critical acclaim recently, well, relatively recently, a few years ago, that I just absolutely hated were Gone Girl and The Girl on the Train. I found no one in either of those books that I could like
High
or even
five.
identify with.
High five.
And it's like,
Air
what
five.
what the heck? Why do people read this stuff? I don't care how well it's written. Nobody in those books
Is worth liking.
is worth liking or even caring about.
It's funny because I don't like unlikable, right? I can't relate and engage with unlikable protagonists at a level that I'd want to sit through 250, 350, 450 pages worth of them. I equate, and I say this when I teach my workshops, I equate picking up a book to going on a road trip. Now, do you really want to get in the car with somebody you're not going to be able to stand and you're going to want to get out at the first gas station? First rest stop, I'm out, right? So I get you. I totally get you with that. So let's talk about those people that are confusing because I don't know if you've started reading the book that I loaned you yet. The
Oh yes,
Adventures
I
of
have. I
Damnation.
started it, but I've been not
Okay.
able to get into it
Okay.
because I start to read
Hmm.
and I fall asleep.
Yeah. So, well, the nice thing about it is that the episodes are fairly short. They're only a few pages long, so you can read because they were
Right,
written like as a blog kind of
right,
an
and
ongoing.
I've been able
Yeah.
to make a start on it because of that.
I really found it fascinating the way that Theoden, when he wrote that, how he took a character who I was all like, oh, pirate, and I'm rooting for him. And then all of a sudden I'm like, this guy's wow. Do I like him? I don't want to like him. I still like him. But I don't really like his behavior. And yet I still want to read about him and go on this adventure. And so I found that a really interesting twist for me. And I think he pulled it off for me because he started him off as a likable rogue.
Right.
Then he had some behaviors that weren't so likable, but I already liked him by then. So it was really coloring my
Some of the
judgment.
stuff that wasn't likable, though, really is in character of the
Uh,
pirate
It's
of the
exactly,
16th century, which we don't find acceptable, but
exactly.
he's behaving like that guy should.
Booyah, right there. Nail on the head. It's exactly right. That's the other piece of it. First of all, that because when you get deeper into it, he gets like, he does some stuff. It's like, what? and I still wanted to hang out with him, right? I know
Well,
he's
see,
this guy.
to me, that's different than the truly unlikable
Mm.
character. For me, the unlikable character is either the person who is just so completely clueless and thoughtless that they don't even realize. Now, that if played for comic effect, that's one thing. But if they're truly supposed to be a serious character and they're consistently doing things that are either self destructive or destructive of the people that should be on their side, then I find
Yeah,
that really unlikable.
yeah,
The other unlikable character is the character who is not behaving in accordance with the kind of the parameters that were set up at the very beginning as to what their background and what their circumstances are.
well, to me, that's a little more of a believability issue. You know what you just said,
Not so
because
much believability. So, for instance, the kind of the stereotypical um, spoiled rich kid
hmm
who doesn't have any redeeming quality. Now, that's a cartoonish, unlikable character that you can understand as the villain or the foil. But when you make that your main character and you don't find any redeeming qualities other than a
yeah,
spoiled rich kid, it's like, no, I don't want to read about this.
it's the whole save the cat
Yeah,
thing. You know, at least
exactly.
let him save a cat, or you know, in the Nellig Stones where I have the dragon want to keep pet birds because he's a really bad
So
guy, but he really wants to have a pet bird, and he can't have a pet bird because he's just a rotten guy. You
right.
know, so
So some people who've read them may disagree with me. Have you read any of John Rengo's Prince Roger series?
no,
So in the very first one, and it's rather prosaically titled March Up Country, Prince Roger, who is the third son of the ruling monarch of the universe, essentially, is shipwrecked on this world intentionally to get him out of the way. But he's the spoiled rich kid. And he does all kinds of things in the first book that are just completely thoughtless and completely unlikable. And the long suffering colonel of the Marines, who is assigned as his bodyguard to protect him, is constantly eye rolling and getting him out of trouble and keeping him from doing stupid shit until the very end of the book when he comes through as the hero. And it's like, maybe this guy's redeemable. So
hmm
there's 3 or 4 books in the series, and by the end of the book, Prince Roger has evolved into a very wise and likable and commanding leader who then is worthy to step up and take the throne. So that's a long, long story arc over
right.
several books. But if all you read was that first book, it's like, well, this guy's a total jerk.
Why did I read
Why
this?
did
Right?
I read this?
Yeah,
I read this because I like the Colonel,
right.
and I understand his.
But that's smart
Oh
because
yeah,
he did that on purpose. He had that secondary character so
that you could like.
that you could like, so you could get in the car, and at least, you know, at least the guy driving is okay, right? The guy in the back seat's a jerk, but at least the guy driving's okay.
Yeah, so I can see the use of the unlikable character
Right.
there. If you're going to make that the sole book, you'd have that epiphany
Sooner.
close to the end, but sooner than like
Yeah.
literally the last scene of the book. Um, but there's more coming because it's left as basically
Right.
a cliffhanger. So okay, well, this is just a long story.
Right. Well, you know, so the character arc is important, and but you have to give the character a reason to change because we are people. People do not change unless we have a reason to change. We don't
Exactly.
just suddenly wake up one day and go, "I'm going to be a better person today." Oh yeah, like I'm just going to change. I'm going to stick to my diet today. You know, no, we don't. We don't until the doctor says you're going to die if you don't change your eating habits. And then some people still don't change, you know, but you know, we have to have impetus to change, right?
Right.
That's why we want to see it in if you're going to have a character arc. First of all, if you're going to have a character, I want them to have an arc.
Well,
I want
it's
them to
kind of
have an arc.
pointless if they don't. I should back up. There are some books where I really don't care if there's a character arc because they're not intended.
They're not that kind of book.
They're not that kind of book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
No.
just they're a different type of book.
But I don't typically read those kinds of books. I want a character arc. I
Right.
want my character to have an arc. I want them to change. I want something to happen. I want impetus. And I don't want them to just wake up one day and go, well, I'm going to be a different guy now, because
Right.
that's not how we do. So
So,
anyway, yeah,
well, again, I know there are authors, I know there are readers who like to read books about unlikable people. I don't, and I have a very hard time even conceptualizing why that appeals. I guess I'm limiting myself to a certain type of reader when I do that, but it's like, why do you do this to yourself?
right. Well, it's the same reason I couldn't watch Orange is the New Black, and I don't watch most reality shows because everybody's just being mean. They're all just being mean to each other. To me, I don't want to hang out with a bunch of mean people. I got better stuff to do with my time than to hang out around a bunch of mean people. Why would I do that to myself? I I guess that some people want to watch other people being mean to other people. I don't know why. I don't find that entertaining, but so I'm not a like I'm like you. I don't want unlikable,
So
truly
my
unlikable
wife's
characters.
take on this, and it isn't exactly the likable and unlikable characters. All she will read in her reading is Harlequin style trashy romance.
Yeah,
That's her
that's her
go to
escape.
sleep, relaxing escape book.
Yeah.
And her reasoning is every day of my professional life, I deal either with tragedy, stupidity, or unlikable people.
Right.
And I don't want to read about. I don't need my
Right.
consciousness raised. I
Right.
don't want to read about that stuff.
I've learned how to navigate the world, and the safest way to navigate the world is to stick my nose in a trashy romance novel at night. That's it. I get it.
Exactly.
I get it, and I get, well, romance is the number one best selling genre in the world,
Probably for a reason.
probably for a
I mean,
reason.
the
Yep.
whole formula is all based on happy endings
Yeah.
and,
Yep. We know that
you know,
everybody's going to win in the end. It's not, nobody, it's not going to end in tragedy. It's,
the tragedy only happens to the bad people anyway. So
right.
that's
The bad
okay.
people, if there are any bad people, they get theirs, and the good people win. And, yeah. No, I can see that. I can see the draw. I really can. Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to make my characters like,
Well,
well, as a matter of fact, somebody who reviewed Thieves Prophet found Zach not a likable character. And I'm like, really? I thought he was a pretty cool guy. I like him.
I, you know what I like about Zach is that he's flawed,
Yeah.
but he's got his own code of ethics and morals, that he sticks to. He's got, he's loyal. He's got, it's that Firefly kind of thing where, yeah, I'm a bad guy, but I'm a good bad. I'm a nice at
Nice bad
heart
guy.
bad guy. I'm
Zach's whole world is freedom and
Mhm.
his crew.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
all that counts. That's all he cares about.
He's got his own values and he sticks to them.
That's intentionally the way he
Right.
was written.
and
That's what
and
I
I think you
wanted.
do a great job with that, and I like him because of that. I don't find him an unlikable character. I find him an interesting character because he's flawed, and I like flawed characters. I think that that's how we can dig in. We can really dig into the psyche and get understanding of other people by reading about people who are flawed, unlikable people. I've lived around too many. I've had to
Come
deal
spend a
with.
shift with me. You want to
No,
meet unlikable people.
I've
Jeez.
had people be just mean to me just to be mean to me. I don't need that in my world. Okay.
Yeah,
Just
we all occasionally encounter the patient who's beaten up or
now.
knifed or stabbed, and after about 10 minutes, it's like, yeah, I understand.
Well, I have to tell you that coming up on my reading list in the next couple of weeks is Ravensbrook. So, yeah, it's about 764 pages worth of, oh, this is going to hurt me. But I need to do it. I need to read it. I want
Why do
the
you
in depth.
need to?
I want that. Well, first of all, it's because it's coming around on the guitar. So it's basically because I need to read a book for my women's reading list that is over 500 pages long, and most of the ones that are going to be over 500 pages long are not pretty stories, and because I feel a need right now to dig into that, and it's just where I'm at. So
It's just an
that's why I
interesting
chose it.
choice if it's just a
Well,
matter of book length and
no, I actually spent 6 months of my life at one point reading nothing but Holocaust survival stories, just all Holocaust books. 6 months of I was miserably depressed, and I couldn't stop because I felt like I needed to understand, and I needed to know, and I needed to I don't know. I just needed to dig into that, and so every now and then I get in a place where I feel like I told you I just read the five, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was fascinating. So in between all of my space opera and other things that I read, I always have a tendency to find something that's a little deeper and a little more dark human story. That it's all
Yeah.
part and parcel of my need to understand and to know things.
Okay. I can
So
think of other ways to understand and know things without going into long, depressing books.
well, yeah, yeah, but it's history and it's I
Yeah. No, I
and I want to.
and I, if I'm reading history, I tend to go more toward primary sources. So if I read history, I read a lot of academic history.
Yeah, that would have trouble.
I know,
Well,
and some
yeah,
people can't stand. I find it fascinating. Yes, you're doing that eye
yeah,
thing.
where one eye closes and the other eye twitches, and it's like
Historical fiction, on the other hand, while I enjoy it a great deal, Bernard Cornwell is one of my favorite authors of all time. But I like it to be at least accurate, if not.
well, this is not historical fiction. This is the real deal. This is history. So
Yeah, I know, and that's what I'm. But it's a type of history. So, like I say, I lean much more toward
oh,
the
narrative.
academic
Yeah, I
history
prefer
rather than
narrative.
narrative
I
history.
do. Yeah.
Narrative history has its place, but you got to remember you're dealing with the narrator.
Hmm.
And so that's a point of view that
Well,
you have to understand that it's a point of view. However real, however objective it is, it's still a point of view.
so are history books. They're
Again,
written from a specific point of view. They're not necessarily as accurate as we would like them to be because they're not
which is
completely objective.
which is why you go to primary
Mhm.
sources as much as you can. Again, yes, we can get into a long discussion about
Oh,
the
yes, we
relative
could.
merits of who writes history
It's-
and why they write history, um, and understanding history in the context that it was written and the context that it took place.
yes, we could. You and I really could probably, you know, dig a big hole into
Yeah,
that.
yes. So let's move on to something else, shall we? Because
Oh,
nobody wants to hear that.
all right. Well, thank you again for listening to this edition of the Brick Cave Podcast. Anytime you would like to hear us, just join us online at brickcavepodcast.com. Our BC Book Club members can enjoy extra episodes and other great advantages such as free books.
Free books.
Details on bcbookclub.com. Thank you again for everyone for listening, and we'll drop in again soon. See ya.
Bye.